Joy Drive on Joy 94.9 FM in Melbourne, Joy on your digital radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn.com or the Joy app. No matter where you are, you can always take Em and Warren with you.
Suzy Wrong, welcome back to Joy Drive.
After being missing in action for a couple of weeks.
I know, we did miss you.
Yeah.
We always do, Suzy.
You said earlier that you haven't done the roller skating to the Xanadu soundtrack, but have you seen the film?
Okay, I wasn't going to mention this, Suzy, but no, I haven't seen the film.
You have to.
I know. I feel like, I feel like tonight could be the night.
Yeah, it's amazing. Make it happen tonight, and I want to hear what you think about it, because, you know, it is such a controversial title, because it's, you know, in the general public, it's often considered to be one of the worst films ever made in the history of all film. But in the queer community, it's like a beacon of truth and light for us.
It's interesting how I was quite shocked when those sort of reviews started coming out a bit later, or I wasn't aware of them. At the time, I thought it was one of the best movies I've ever seen. I loved it. I loved the soundtrack. There was roller skating in it. It was perfect.
Yeah, and I still watch it every now and again. I bought a disc of it not too long ago, like must be a 30th anniversary version of it. It is beautiful. I still love it. And I hope, Em, you would enjoy it tonight.
Yes, I'm excited. I've got something to look forward to.
But today we are, of course, talking about Uncoupled, which is streaming on Netflix. Now, I just want to say, I'm going to talk about a sex scene. So if there's kids in the car, just a warning.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm so excited. Okay, if the name Darren Star sounds familiar, you might have seen his TV shows that he has produced and written, such as Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place, and Sex and the City. His new series on Netflix, Uncoupled, stars Neil Patrick Harris and feels a lot like the aforementioned Sex and the City, only with a gay man leading the story instead of Carrie Bradshaw. And P.H. Harris plays Michael, a 40-something real estate broker in New York City who finds himself suddenly dumped by his boyfriend of 17 years. Predictably, perhaps, we are treated to a chain of bittersweet events as Michael tries to find himself as a single man in a whole new world of modern dating. It is all very safe. None of the storytelling is surprising, but I've got to say, I love it. I just love the Manhattan vibe, going to bars and restaurants with the rich gays and laughing at 90s style jokes that I'm not too afraid to admit that I'm totally living for. Unlike season 1 of Sex and the City, Uncoupled does not feel fresh and groundbreaking, but it is produced in a formulaic way that seems to me to be tried and tested, and for me at least highly entertaining in a mindless sort of way. Neil Patrick Harris's performance, as always, is excellent and really does give a bit of class to the show, I think. It is noteworthy that there are great black characters, including his best friends Suzanne and Billy, and his fabulous neighbor Jack, the older gay man, who brings occasional gravity to proceedings. Darren Star is trying to get with the times a little bit with Uncoupled, but it really is the old-fashioned style and structure that makes it work. Em and Warren, I don't know if you enjoyed it as much as I, but I hope you found it an easy watch at least.
It definitely is an easy watch, and I'm glad that you mentioned like a gay man Sex in the City, because I feel like that is kind of the angle that I was watching it with. Like, I was like, oh, I can see the sort of trope elements, and it is a little bit predictable at times, but also like it's very easy to watch. You know, there's comical moments. I really like that the overarching story is about 50-year-old characters played by 50-year-old actors, and it's not, 30-somethings, and it's 50-year-old people with 50-year-old problems and like 17-year-long relationship problems, which I kind of like as well.
Yeah, I really like that. Romance is sort of the basis of the story, but it's a very mature way of looking at romance. So it communicates with me a little bit more, a sort of a more worldly attitude about it.
Yeah, it got me thinking. I quite enjoyed it, Suzy. I mean, it was light entertainment. I think it was more, rather than like Sex in the City, I mean, the music was very similar.
Yes, the music.
I found the music was similar, and then I didn't realize that it was the the co-director was from Sex in the City, but I could see why, but I think it was a bit more like, what was the sequel? Was it And Just Like That or something? I think it was a bit more like that than the original Sex in the City. I've got to admit, I found Michael's friends more interesting than the main character, and I would like to have found out a little bit more about them, and maybe there can be some follow-ups or something about that. But what it did, it got me thinking about, being an older gay man. As we mature, we come out of, our younger years and we go through everything. And it got me thinking, thank God, when I came out, there were no apps. Honestly, because I was looking at it and the story around the apps and around Grindr, we all use Grindr and what have you. It's the same all over the world, isn't it? And I was thinking, is that what our life is like now? It's, hey, show us your dick pic and what are you into? What are your stats? And it's the same sort of superficial questions. And I feel like, I don't know, I was feeling a bit sad thinking, have we all been reduced to this culture? And that's all that we can talk about on TV. It's all that it is. Being a gay man now is being able to operate Grindr and share it with your friends and tell them who you're having sex with.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting thing to question about where the culture is as it stands today. I did notice that there are very few gay bar scenes because I think the truth is that gay bars no longer play such a big part in gay men's lives. But also along with that, it's a very sort of a modern take on the gay TV show where they're kind of not talking about homophobia and trauma so much, which is also a refreshing change. The show does talk about Grindr a lot. The show does talk about a few changes to how gay men have sex, how things have changed over the 17 years. There are things about the use of condom or not, or how young men are not using as much condoms as much these days. And I suspect the sex scene you want to talk about has to do with Botox?
No. The sex scene I want to talk about is okay. So, it's in the first or second episode and he discovers his ex, in the apartment next to the High Line, and you see the ex having sex with the new guy. Mm-hmm. And I look at it and you think, how realistic is that? I mean, the guy was kissing him, span him around, pressed him against the window and then started thrusting. And I just thought, that's so unrealistic. That's not how it works.
That was a dream. That was a dream, right?
Yeah, where was the, hey, is it?
I think a lot of it is unrealistic.
It was just, it was so pathetically unrealistic. Like sex does not happen like that. And I couldn't help but focus on it.
Yeah, the show is very glamorous. So most of it is unrealistic, but I do feel like it all comes from a place of lived experience. I would imagine that the creators, the writers are, that sort of slightly older age group of gay men who have experienced these things, and they have to sort of turn it into a digestible half-hour comedy series. So a lot of the stories do happen really quickly. So I guess it all feels really heightened. But I think they're so skillful at creating this sort of comedy. It doesn't bother me that much. Like and the whole thing has so much gloss to it, I don't feel like I'm looking for anything real, really.
And again, these are things that got me thinking while I was watching it, which I was quite happy to enjoy watching the series. But I did get annoyed at something, and that was not something so much that was annoyed at the show itself, but I was annoyed at why do we always need to define ourselves sexually as either, a top or a bottom to our mates? What? I mean, that went on a few times in it, and I felt like the way it was done, it was almost a bit of bottom shaming in there as well. And I thought, guys, can we get past this? Do we need to define ourselves sexually to our friends who we're not having sex with?
That's so interesting you brought that up, because I was trying to think, how is this show updated and how is it sort of moved along with the times or have not? And one of the things that I did realize was they didn't talk about how the younger generation, and they do talk about, having sex with younger gay men, they kind of think about themselves a bit differently, and I think this top-bottom thing would be one of those things. Like our generation seems to have this sort of hang up over top and bottom, to the extent that, that Michael had to break up with a very eligible bachelor because they weren't compatible in that way. It's all crazy, but it also shows that it might be a Generation X thing. I'm not sure.
What did you think about it, the part, where the hookup was terminated because the guy didn't know about the quilt project?
The which project?
The quilt project.
Oh, right. I mean, I think it worked dramatically, you know, I think it was saying a lot in that scene, but obviously it's not realistic. I don't think anyone is gonna not go ahead with having sex with that very attractive guy because he was ignorant. Like, you know, I think we've all had sex with very ignorant people.
Look, I quite enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I enjoyed watching it. It did get me thinking about a few things about what it's like to be a gay man as you grow older and you leave behind, you know, the young years and what you did and yeah, good. Watch it.
I think that's the sign of a good show, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
You're watching it, and as we've said a bunch of times, it's quite an easy watch, but it also incites thoughts and like pensiveness, and so that I think is the sign of a good show.
Yeah, exactly. And like that hookup scene where it was no because you don't know about the Quilt Project, I thought, I can understand. I mean, you know, we went through hell as gay men in the 90s, and young kids don't necessarily know about that, but then why would they? Because things are different nowadays, and whilst it's nice to have that recognition that it was awful, we can't expect everyone to understand what it was like.
Yeah, we've worked very hard so they don't have to worry about those things. And then we can't sort of, you know, hold a grudge against them, really. Yeah. You know, we just have to be grateful that they have a much easier life, and hopefully it gets better through time.
Absolutely.
And if people are wondering what the Botox was about, it wasn't for the face.
I will say I did find that the series quite funny. I loved Suzanne, and I thought that she was really funny as well. I liked that it explored a bunch of different ways of thinking and looking at love, which was kind of cool because pretty much, you know, I know this was written on purpose, but each, you know, best friend had a different way of looking at their love life and the way that they wanted to sort of be in the world within their love life. And I guess to close, I would say they've really set up season 2 really well.
Yeah. And they sort of have, hopefully given us enough information about all the friends so that it's less about Michael, because I do feel like the story can't go very much further with Michael, but you can sort of spend a bit more time to look at the other characters who are all very well performed and very well conceived.
We've actually had a bunch of messages in about the show as well. Suzy, we can let you know. Someone said, I say it's about 80% cringe, cliche, stereotype, overacting, and 20% cute. Whoa, okay. Solid. And also we've had a message that says, glad that it's an older demographic.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's an older demographic as well. And one of the things that I've realized is because of the way we watch shows these days, you know, they're not sort of, back in the day, like you could tell depending on which channel the show would come on the TV and what time slot it would come on, you would have different levels of expectation. Do you know what I mean? Like if it comes on at 6:30, 7 o'clock, you know that it's not going to be great quality. But now, because it all comes on like on a level playing field, it's just on Netflix, it might be a little bit hard to sort of adjust your expectations maybe. So I think we've made it very clear, like, that we all found it an enjoyable watch, but it is sort of really light and really fluffy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Before we let you go, Suzy, we should mention this very good message that says, Suzy Wrong, you're the best. Comment of the day, we've all had sex with ignorant people. Gold, love your honesty.
Joy Drive on Joy 94.9 FM in Melbourne, Joy on your digital radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn.com or the Joy app. No matter where you are, you can always take Em and Warren with you.
All right, next week,
yes,
we'll check out a new documentary on SBS called The Alexander Ball, in which we visit a Brisbane ballroom event and get to know some wonderfully talented queer people of colour. That's The Alexander Ball on SBS.
Sounds great. Thanks, Suzy.
Fantastic, Suzy. We'll catch you next week.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.